Okay, so on the practice worksheet, we're going to work through problems 1 through 6 together. And in problem number 1, we want to complete the statement to make it true. And it says that if g of -4 is equal to 0, then blank is a factor of g of x. And that is coming from the remainder theorem and the factor theorem. So if we substituted a -4 into the function g, then the 0 that came out when we evaluated is the remainder. And when the remainder is equal to 0, the factor theorem says that factor, which would have been x plus 4, that corresponds with the 0 of -4, that would be a factor of g of x. Okay, number 2, x to the 4th minus 3x squared plus 2x minus 5. When we divide that by x squared minus 2x plus 3, that cannot be done using what kind of division? And that would be impossible using synthetic division, because synthetic division only works with linear divisors, and this is a quadratic divisor. So we would need to use polynomial long division in order to do that division. Number 3, if f of 5 is equal to 3, then f of x divided by x minus 5 has a remainder of 3, right? That's our remainder theorem. Okay, now numbers 4, 5, and 6 were asked to use that remainder theorem to find the remainder when dividing each by x minus 3. So if x minus 3 is the divisor, I would substitute 3 in for x in each of these problems. So instead of x to the 3rd power, I would have 3 to the 3rd power minus 5 times, and then instead of x squared, I substitute the 3 and square it, minus 3 times x, and then instead of x, I put in a 3, and plus 9. So when I go to evaluate that in the calculator, remember from the notes, we can store that value of 3 as x, and then type in our polynomial. So x cubed, and then that's minus 5x squared minus 3x plus 9, and that is equal to -18. And since f of 3 is equal to -18, -18 is the remainder of that division, and so x minus 3 is not a factor. Right, to be a factor, we would need a remainder of 0. Okay, then in number 5, we're going to evaluate g of 3 and see if we get a remainder of 0 or not. So instead of x's in this polynomial, I'm going to substitute in 3 for all of the x's. Okay, and so when we put that into the calculator to evaluate, right, I already have 3 stored as my x, and so now all I need to do is type in that original polynomial here, x to the 3rd power plus 2x squared minus 6x plus 12 is 39. And that would be the remainder. So that means that x minus 3 is, again, not a factor, right? To be a factor, we would need a remainder of 0. So now in h of x, we're still checking to see if x minus 3 is a factor or not. So I'm going to substitute 3 in for each of the x's. So I'll have 3 cubed minus 3 squared minus 7 times 3 plus 3. So in the calculator, 3 is still stored as x. So we're going to evaluate x to the 3rd power minus x squared, then minus 7x plus 3, enter, and this time we get the remainder of 0 that we wanted. So x h of 3 is equal to 0, and that's the remainder, so yes, x minus 3 is a factor.